Good evening, everyone. It's 6:30 on Monday, November 14th. This is the Committee of Development and Government Relations for the Holyoke City Council. We are being recorded, and the meeting is being broadcast on Channel 15. We're also available on Zoom, and it's on the city's website. And this evening, we're joined by my committee members. We have Councilor Bartley, Councilor Vacan, Councilor Rivera. Councilor McGivern has informed me that he will be joining us soon. I'm Tessa Murphy-Romboletti. I'm the chair of Development and Government Relations Committee. So tonight's agenda, we have a couple public hearings, and I'll entertain a motion to open the first public hearing.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to take one off the table, open the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved. The first item is a special permit application for Antonio Rodriguez at 2 Orchard Street in order to add a second driveway for a school bus to turn around in. And we're joined this evening by the applicant, Mr. Rodriguez. Thank you for being here this evening and welcome. I had the opportunity to speak with Mr. Rodriguez earlier just to kind of get some background, and I'd love to, give you the opportunity to explain what's before us. And then my committee members and any other counselors that may join us will have the opportunity to ask questions. And then we'll allow the public, if there's anyone who wants to submit any feedback, and then we'll go from there. Does that sound good?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So I will let you take it away, and as long as the green button is on, the microphone's on.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. So we applied for a special permit after a couple situations that we have with my kids' school transportation. The 3 of my kids have IEP, which the contract say that the school transportation has to be provided door-to-door service. It has been a few incidents where the school bus get complaints about the neighbors, about the beeping, or the school buses turning around on the driveway. It's a really tight street, so it's not that much space to turn around. So city went there, the school went there, and they asked if it was possible to make a driveway on the left hand on the house, because that would give them plenty of space to turn, because across of that space is a no parking zone, which nobody's supposed to park on that sign, and then we have enough space to turn around. I believe the school submit a letter that you guys have on file, so saying in the request of that special permit and the reasons why they understand that we need to make that driveway. So basically, I'm on behalf of the school to accommodate the situation between the neighbors and the school bus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rodriguez. We appreciate your time being here, and we're all pretty familiar with Orchard. It's a narrow dead end, so at this moment, I'm going to pause and see if any of my members have a question. Councilor Bartley?
Well, I mean, is there anyone here from the planning department? The planning department submit any kind of correspondence to us regarding this?
No, not that I can see.
Okay. Did you submit anything to the Holyoke Planning Department? Just leave that thing on, because I'm going to ask you a series of questions. So, did the planning department weigh in on this?
I have a meeting with them. I think the director went to the house and see what we was talking about, but he said before he even moved forward, we making a design or croquis or what could be, the special permit have to be heard before, and then he will get involved and move forward with whatever need to happen if the permit is approved.
Well, yeah, just leave that on, because I'm going to you're going to go back and forth. So, to construct, there's a sidewalk. I know that street. So there's a sidewalk, and is 2 by the cemetery or closer towards the street?
In that street is technically the first house on the right when you go in.
First house on the right. Okay, and so there's a sidewalk. Okay, and are you gonna have to cut the curb to go? I mean, there's a curbing there now, right? So you. That's
my understanding when I was having the conversation with him. That's when special planning have to come in on board, because it's a city sidewalk and it have to be cut the curve, and DPW will have to come out, and it's a process that have to take place after whatever decision is made here before we could even move forward on doing anything.
Right. Okay, and and I believe everything you told me. I'm sure it's all accurate. So, and when did you speak with the planning department? Was it, recently, or was it?
That was a day before we submit that application.
So that would have been in,
Says received September
September.
29th,
yeah.
Back in September.
September 29th. Okay. Okay, and right now, and there is a driveway currently, or is there not?
On the right side of left side view from facing the house.
So I'm looking at your house. The driveway's on which side?
On the left side.
Left side, okay. And so this second driveway would be, if I'm facing it, on the right-hand side of the house.
That's correct.
Okay.
Or
And-
if you, right side.
Oh, okay. And, overall, I don't have a problem with any of this. But I do have a problem not having anything before me from an so what if we go through with all this, and what if the Board of Public Works says denied? I mean, how do we know? Well, obviously we don't know. That's a rhetorical question. So we have no idea. And we have no input from the planning department other than what you just said. And so what you're telling us is that we have to move first, and then we're going to hear from planning, and then we're going to hear from Public Works.
So my understanding of what I understood of that conversation is, because city ordinance required to have a special permit, then we not go out onto that special permit is granted or not. And after that's granted, my understanding is it have to go to planning, design has to be submitted, and then it will go back to the city council for the final approval with the planning input on whatever is the input if they decide to move forward with it. That's my understanding on the conversation that I had with them.
Okay, so I guess, and is there anyone from the law department here?
Attorney Bissonette is on the call.
Okay, just to chair, Mike, you want to unmute yourself and be available?
Good evening.
Hi, Mike, just through the chair. Mike, okay, so can you just, if you have, walk us through it with the driveway, the second driveway ordinance? So this is requiring a special permit, and before me, I have nothing from either the Public Works Board or the Planning Board. So do I need something from them in order to make a decision, or can we go ahead and move this along, or do we need to table this and wait for input from those boards?
Under Chapter 40, you wouldn't be able to move forward without a recommendation first from the planning board. Doesn't mean you have to follow the recommendation.
Oh, no, Mike, I know that. I love not following the recommendation. So that's par for the course. Okay, under Chapter 40, so that's very helpful. So I just went to the applicant. So I am very sympathetic, and I'm warm to your application. What I don't get is why our city departments haven't provided their input. Now, there's a reason for that. I'm not being mean. I'm just trying to trying to explain it to you that it's tough for me to make an informed vote unless I hear from our department heads. Does that make sense?
I could understand where you're coming from.
Okay, I appreciate that. So I guess I'm okay for right now. My 2 cents is that we're likely going to have to table this and continue this public hearing till we hear from somebody. But thank you. That's all I have for now. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Counselor Bacon.
Thanks. I just wanted to note that I was a little surprised we didn't have anything from planning, because we're unable to determine things like how much space is needed and things like that. And they usually do that review and provide it to us in different public hearings. So I think that's all we need, but then we'd be able to make an informed decision on it. But it all makes sense to me too, what you're saying. Because it sounds like then the bus could just come in to what would now be the first driveway and not even have to go down the street.
Yes,
Right?
my house is the first one in the street, yeah.
Yeah. So I think we'll get it done, but I know you filed it back in September, so it's just taking a little while.
Yeah, I guess for me, I don't know, Jeffrey, if this is something like administratively that I should follow up with the planning board on. I guess I have an appreciation for Mr. Rodriguez's time frame, because right now your children aren't able to be picked up at all, correct?
They've been picked up at the corner of Sargent Street,
Okay.
which we already have 2 incidents where they almost got hit by a car because the school bus person was not paying attention, let's call it that.
Yep.
And by the condition, that's what they need to be picked up in front of the house, because the safety part, they not are aware on the medical condition, and that's why it's door-to-door service, because it minimizes the risks of them crossing the street or they running away. That's why, and it's been like that for years, and it was like that for a whole year when I moved in there, until the situations with the calls and the complaints to the company start, and then they suspend the door-to-door pickup.
Okay. Counselor?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, the position of, so you're a renter?
No.
You're the homeowner?
One of them, and my parents are here as well.
Oh, now that's convenient.
Helson and Carmen, yes.
Oh, okay, okay. So I take it they're green lights on. Okay, that's important. Okay, all right. So I wasn't clear on that part. And so, just so I'm clear, you now take the how many children are we talking about?
2 children will go on that school bus. One of them is still being picked up in front of the house.
Okay, and what is a and who are they getting picked up by public schools for student?
Public school, yeah.
Holyoke school. Okay, and is it what kind of a vehicle are they picked up in?
The yellow minibus.
The yellow minibus. Okay. Have you had any conversations with the school department to find a temporary kind of relief to this matter? Say at the corner of Sargent and what's there right now at the corner of Sargent and Orchard? Is it? I mean, I assume allegedly from the corner to back 20 feet, there's no parking by ordinance, right? So what do you see when you go out there every day? Are the cars parked there?
Yes, they are.
Cars are parked there. Aha. All right.
And I have multiple conversations with the police department, right? Because this situation is not for now. We have a year dealing with this. You guys got it now in front because the school department run out of resources to try to fix the problem. And that's why they type the letter that is in front of you, because they try in different ways, but it has not been possible. We talked to the police department about making sure we're enforcing a nobody parking in there. It's not realistic. They don't got the manpower. They don't send nobody. It's the reality that we're living.
Well, there's always hope. There's always hope when we think this out a little bit. So this is what the police department, in my humble experience, likes. While I despise overall, too much signage, sometimes signage is very appropriate. So to your recollection, is there a no parking sign that sort of points west on that street to the like 20 feet back, saying no parking from here to corner?
No.
Okay.
At the beginning of the street to the corner is no sign. You could park there because it's no sign.
Right on. So what I'm thinking now is that we could potentially, and I'll have the chair do it, so because she gets the big money, she can file a late filed order for tomorrow night to say to the DPW, and we don't need an ordinance for this because it's already in the ordinances, to install a no parking sign at that corner, if you will. So that would, as a temporary, at least it gives some temporary relief. So if we put the sign in, my experience is that most motorists will respect that. And if a police car goes by and they see that, they're more likely to go ahead and pull over, put the lights on, and ticket and then potentially tow the vehicle. And that usually gets the message across pretty fast. So that's just something for consideration by the chair. Perhaps the chair would consider that filing that for tomorrow night, a late filed order for that. That would potentially get some temporary relief. I would only say, I don't think we can move this along tonight. I don't think we have the legal mechanism to do it. So I think we're going to have to continue this to a date certain, and then get our act together from the city side and try to go from there. So that's all I have for right now.
To put in your mind, even though you do that, we're still having the same problem. Because where the minibus going to turn around once she entered the street? Because that's the biggest problem that we have, the minibus to turn around.
Well, I mean, they can, here's my thinking, they can pull over to the corner, right? I'm assuming there's room, some of the cars are no longer parked there. They can pull over to the corner of Sargent and Orchard, collect the kids. I assume you or your spouse or somebody or your parents are out there with them. They're out there standing by themselves, right? Or maybe they are, but somebody's going to load them onto the bus. Then the bus driver, being on Sargent Street, is going to have to figure out a way to either pull up to Northampton and travel, traverse another way. I mean, oh well. I mean, there's, they don't necessarily have to do a U-turn right in the middle of Sargent, or they can, they can find another temporary way to navigate your kids back to the school. I mean, that's something I'll let you sort of figure that out. I mean, look, I can't wave a wand and get this done. I'm just saying. So you'll put some thought into it. The school bus driver could put some thought. It's just my 2 cents. I'm not a dictator here, but just as such for you to consider. So if it did make sense to you, so the bus is pulled over, has the kids, and then you figure out a game plan on how to navigate from there to where the bus driver needs to be. I mean, they're not going to be able to. I get the fact that it's not optimal, but at least it's a safe way to get them onto the bus, and the bus driver can figure out how to get back into traffic. And maybe that doesn't make sense, but man, that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. I have more of a clarifying question. I just don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember us needing anything from the planning board for like the special permit that we gave for the car wash. Like, I don't remember getting those things. Kind of looking to my fellow committee members, because I understand that, this is an important part, but I guess I just don't remember that from these other public hearings.
We did. Respectfully, we did.
Okay.
But you can verify with Mike.
Yeah.
Mike's here. I think Mike just referenced chapter 40. So.
Okay. Yeah. Councilor Bacon, you said you had something.
Well, I had a thought, but then I realized we're on a very tight timeline because our meeting is tonight and city council is tomorrow.
Yes.
So I was originally thinking maybe they could get back to us before the next meeting, but we're too tight up against the deadline to meet the law.
Yeah.
So, but they should be able to get back before the next meeting.
Okay.
I guess we could have a meeting sooner than we
Yeah,
might
that's what we'll need to do.
regularly
Yeah,
have.
that's what we'll do.
To move
For
it
sure.
forward instead of waiting a whole month.
For sure.
Yeah.
Any other? Yeah, I don't. I would.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't want to wait a month. So,
It's a possibility.
So if may I, in the meantime, because we're saying we may need to table this. In the meantime, and I want to do it because we're on the record, who gonna be responsible for whatever happened until now, until the days that you guys meet again, for the safety of those kids, that the city is failing to provide what is in the federal contract, which is what is a IEP, a federal contract, that the city of Holyoke compromised to provide that service door to door. Who gonna be liable for whatever happened in this time? Because I have taken all my steps to do it in the right and in other way. If the city failed to be here today planning, it's not on me. I meet with them. I did all the proper procedures to have this hearing today. If the city failed to not be ready, it shouldn't be put on us. It shouldn't be put on the safety of my kids. So who gonna be responsible for whatever happened in that timeline? Because you are technically, and I'm not saying you as a person, city are violating federal rights of those kids because the IEP is not being forced and it's not being conducted as it's supposed to be.
absolutely, I can appreciate your question and your frustrations, and just after speaking with you, I can understand that this has been going on for a while, and you are doing your best to, make accommodations. And me personally, I mean, I know that when we talked, I was throwing out all these different ideas of like, can I talk to the superintendent? So I think for me personally, like that's something that I'll be following up on and doing what I can to facilitate and expedite the decision. You have a question, Councilor Rivera?
Well, like, I'm agreeing with Mr. Rodriguez. I'm not saying we're not agreeing with him. From working at the Holyoke Public Schools, not only it is the Holyoke Public Schools and the City of Holyoke is required to follow an IEP. The problem is with these small buses, they have a certain time frame to drop off the kids. They could be there waiting 3 minutes. So what if something happens to grandparents? They're not leaving them at the door, they're leaving them in the corner. So we gotta call the Holyoke Public Schools. They gotta do something else because it is the safety of those kids, and they are not following the IEP laws. And I worked at the school, so I know that much.
Anyone else right now? Before we continue, is there anyone, I'm just going to take a pause and see if there's anyone else from the audience that is here for this special permit, okay? If you can, come up to the microphone, and if you want to say anything, I'm assuming that's why you're here, but just state your name and address.
Yeah, right there's a mic. Be perfect. Just make sure it's on. Just tap it.
Oh, no, it's not on.
The switch, that's on the side.
Sorry.
The back of it.
There you go. Great.
There we go. My name's Pat Mulvaney. I'm from 8 Orchard Street, so I'm halfway down on the right, same side as number 2. I think, the root cause of this issue, and I'm hearing the bus, we've dealt with the buses, we've dealt with the tight street, the parking, and it is an issue. But I think when we look at the root cause of the issue, it's the volume of vehicles that number 2 currently has parked on the street. So that has been an issue. That makes it extremely difficult for a bus to turn around from a van to a mini, the orange bus, which is pushing all the traffic down halfway down the street. And it's still tight. It gets even tighter, right? And you get to the dead end and it's extremely tight because some people don't even have driveways. So they have to back out. We've had fire trucks, we backed out. We've had ambulance, we had to back out by ground guiding. So that's a concern, right? They do have one of the longest driveways on the street. So for the rest of us who don't have the ability to put 2 cars in our driveway, we can't support the amount of vehicles, right? So that's causing them to push down to us, and when we get in the inclement weather, snow and whatnot, those vehicles are not moving, or they're parking in front of our residence, and then the plows can't get through and all that stuff, and we do have elderly and a lot of other children and a lot of pets on the street as well. So it's just, I'll say, out of all of it, it's a safety issue. It's been a safety issue, and not just for the vehicles at number 2, for everybody down to the end of Sargent, because as they park all the way to the end, I'm in a pickup truck, and I can't see what's coming left or right when I'm pulling on Sargent Street. That's not a place you want to be hesitant pulling out and get hit, right? So that's a concern. So the no parking from the 25 feet or whatever the regulation is onto the street, that's absolutely critical for safety, period, right? We just had a bunch of linesmen there redoing all the telephone wires and all that stuff. It's a nightmare. By the time they pull the trucks on, put the stanchions down, nobody can move. People can't go to work, people can't go to doctor's appointment, whatever it is, school, right? They can't get picked up. So I think it's, again, the root cause is the sheer number of volume, the volume of vehicles on the street. So, we've said issues before with the buses, because when they're turning around, they're on our property, they're running on the lawns, they're doing honking, and I'm not saying them, but there was another family where they wouldn't pick the kids up or put them on the bus, so he's just out there wailing the horn for an hour, Then they leave and have to come back. So that's multiple attempts of these people coming in and out. We've already got problems with speeding with UPS, FedEx. We got kids and pets on both sides. So when you stack cars, you literally can't see if anything's coming out on either side while you drive down the middle. And that's in a pickup truck, which most of us on the street have. So it's tight. It's definitely an issue. And I think people are just getting frustrated because you can't have families come see you and park in front of your house. They got to park, down at the end of the street or somewhere on Sargent or on Northampton because all the parking on the street is completely taken. So when I go to unload Costco with my truck, it's a pain. You want to do a house project, it's a pain. You want a moving truck, it's a pain. So that's really it. I mean, picking up in front of the house, not an issue if we clear the street. They'll have plenty of room to turn around, but you got to clear both sides of the street. It's not just one. So if they have more vehicles, other people are going to park around that on the other side, and now double-sided. It's a nightmare. And when we go into the parking ban, everybody stacks up on one side. There's just not enough room for anybody to park. So you got to share driveways, and it's messy. So that's all I have to say about that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Any questions? Good.
I do.
Okay, Councilor
Just through the
Bartley.
chair to Mr. Mulvaney.
Sure.
How many cars would you estimate or?
For
What?
For which resident? Are you talking in total?
No, not just number two. Would you?
Seven cars. We had 7 to 10.
7 to 10 cars?
And we had the PVTA, we had the tow trucks coming in the first year, so that was a concern. The tow truck was an issue because it was holding up vehicles getting on and off, and we didn't know we were going to have commercial vehicles dropping vehicles in and out. So we didn't know it was a commercial business. It's not zoned for commercial. It's a residential street. So just the volume of vehicles coming in and out was a real issue for all of us. We all had to adjust, right? So as number 2 parked, everybody from number 4.
Just to clarify, you said is that still happening?
Still happening. It's definitely been a lower volume in the last. Yeah, not the tow truck hasn't come back in quite a while. And the vehicles have slimmed down, but we're concerned that that's only because now we're looking at a special permit for the other driveway.
Okay, Councilor Bartley.
Just since I saw the floor, just through chair to Mr. Mulvaney. The vehicles are, I think I missed a comment. The vehicles are commercial vehicles, or some are commercial, or none are commercial?
None, okay. The PVTA, I don't know what that was.
Well,
Commercial-
I mean, are you saying the PVTA bus is parked there? Not overnight.
I think that's in their driveway now. Yeah.
Okay, so just so we're all aware, I mean, the city, okay, I'll have to, we'll have to address that separately, but just, Madam Chair, just 1 second. I think I misunderstood, because we all know that parking a commercial vehicle on a city street overnight is not allowed. That's per city ordinance. So we all know that, right? I hope we do. And so if we ever saw that, you can contact, the police or something. They'll just give a warning, and that'll be the end of that. But I didn't hear you say. Okay, you didn't say that though. You didn't say that there's commercial vehicles. You just said you just saw a PVTA vehicle parked in that driveway.
It was on the street, now it's in the driveway. The concern is the paper tag vehicles that used to go from the corner of Sargent past number 2's house, right? So they basically occupied the whole space down past their house into my neighbor's house, which then my neighbors parked in front of my house, and then I got nowhere to go.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
That is the real concern, because what are all these vehicles? If the vehicles are the issue for the bus, then I think it should be on number 2 to resolve that issue. I don't know what those vehicles are. And that's, unless it's a business, that's not my business. But we're sitting here talking about an extra driveway. Well, does that mean that now all these other vehicles are going to keep coming in and using the other driveway, but the permit was for a bus turnaround?
Okay.
I hear him that it's a concern on Sargent Street. That's not the ideal spot to pick up kids.
Yeah.
Right? But you are supposed to abide the law when you're near a bus. If it puts a stop sign out, you stop. That's against the law not to. So,
Okay.
so there's protocols in place to protect children while they get on and off a bus, right?
Okay.
Whether people follow that or not, and that's his concern. You know, I believe I'm not a parent, but if I was, I'd have an issue with that.
Sure.
But bring him on a dead-end street to try to turn around. You know, 2 years ago, we had an incident where one of the buses went down, turned around at the end of the dead end, hit a vehicle, and left the scene. A police officer from Holyoke lives halfway down the street, witnessed it, and had to report it because he's a cop. So, you know, the buses haven't had a good run on Orchard Street. And the PVTA, you know, or the UPS and the Amazon guys will tell you the same thing. They don't want to come down.
Yeah.
So they're delivering my boxes to Alderman Street right now, just so they don't have to come down Orchard.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
you know.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions right now? Okay.
So
And then, yes, go ahead.
I would like to clarify the PVTA matter, because
Well, Madam Chair, just a point of order.
Okay.
I think we're hearing from the public right now. The petitioner's already had his chance to speak, and you can let him address later, but I kind of want to hear from the rest of the public, if that's at all possible.
Well, okay, I think we can do both. I think we can allow the opportunity for other folks to say their piece and also,
You can, but you're going to get into a back and forth. I mean, you can run the meeting the way you want, but I would just suggest hearing from the public first and then letting him make his notes and then.
okay,
I'll say-
I'll do it that way. That sounds good. Well, is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak? Sure, come on up to the microphone. Please state your name and your address, and then I also see you as well, so we'll go to you next. Thank you.
Don Burrell, 9 Orchard. Yeah, my biggest concern is the Vermont license plates, the paper tags that the last guy referenced on 3 of his cars. He has 5 cars in his driveway right now, or on his property. He's got 1 behind the house. He does have a bus. It's not a PVTA. It's a personal vehicle. But if that bus can fit in there, his IEP bus can fit in there.
Okay.
Doesn't need a second driveway.
Okay, thank you very much. Sure, come on up, state your name and your address.
My name is Helson Morales, and I'm the property owner. And I just got to watch my words because I don't want this to be turned into a back and forth, by no means, okay? But listening to all this nonsense that is not true, I mean, I got to let it know. Our house, our vehicles that have been parked in front of the house, first of all, they pay taxes, they got the license plate, so they are allowed to be there. The PVT bus is ours. We bought it. It has our tag from the Massachusetts state. So it's not a commercial vehicle. It's for the family to go out and do whatever we do. And it's inside our driveway. It's not even in the street. It was in the street for a few days until we got some other stuff cleaned and we put it back in there. Now, the fact that I'm hearing that there's cars parked all the way up to number 8 and number 9, and we are in number 2, it's a flat out lie, because cars that park in front of our house do not go beyond our front driveway. I don't even know what it's motivating them to come over here and say this, which I don't care. I'm just trying to compose myself because I'm not used to, especially veterans like me, talking all this nonsense and stuff that is not true just because you don't want us to be there. That's the whole thing here. Now, the 2 driveways, the reason why it's needed is because they are the ones complaining that the buses turn it around their houses. And somebody said, he said that they turn around the lawn, which is a lie because that would mean that the bus will get on top of the sidewalk to get on his lawn. And it's not true. Now, they're complaining because the school bus is turning there, but nobody complains when the UPS, FedEx, and everybody else that goes in the street and turn around in the street, and with the little beep sound they make when they put the car in reverse. Nobody complains about that. The complaints comes towards us. Okay, and it's getting old. It is getting old. whatever you guys' decision is, we'll go by it. You know why? Because I'm a law-abiding citizen. What I don't like is the little petty stuff, little kids and calling anonymously and complaining. It doesn't work like that.
Okay.
Come on, please.
Okay, thank
It just
you.
doesn't work like that.
All right. I just want to remind everyone that, you know, it is a public hearing. Everyone's invited to say
Thank you.
their, oh,
Hey, thank you. That's all I had to say, because
Okay.
now I know who I am.
okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Please, everyone. Okay. Thank you.
I also live at 9 Orchard Street, which is diagonally.
You want to say your name into the record?
My name is Brenda, and I live at 9 Orchard Street, which is actually directly diagonally across the street from 2. It's not the other end of the street. This picture was taken on the 7th of November. 5 vehicles belong to this house on the street. 5. The red one down there that's got a temporary Vermont plate expired on November 7th, and it's been sitting there. And if it's not sitting there, they put him into the driveway behind a fence. The Mercedes that's in the driveway has no front plate. It's got a Vermont plate on the back. That Vermont plate came on their bus, their family bus, when they moved here 2 years ago.
Okay.
The same plate. The same plate has been on 3, maybe 4 different vehicles. If they were all registered Massachusetts vehicles, whatever. They're complaining about people parking at that end of the street. They have to park at the end of the street because they usurp the street. And the people that used to park there now have to park farther away from their own home.
All right.
That's all I got to say. Oh, and the school bus can't turn around in any driveway because it's too narrow. There's cars parked on both sides of the road. Across the street from where they want to park, 2 vehicles park there because they live there. Those cars are still going to be there in the morning.
Okay.
I took a week's worth of pictures with the school bus at the end of the sidewalk, and the school bus, the door faces the sidewalk. They don't have to cross traffic whatsoever.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So, first of all, I don't think we're going to be able to make a decision tonight. And I do apologize that, you know, we didn't get what we needed from the planning board. I think there's a few temporary things that we can try to do. You know, I want everyone who is here this evening, you all clearly care about your own quality of life and the concern. Everyone wants what's safe for the children who are getting picked up. So I think we can all agree on that. And I do believe that we can come to a solution. I just don't think tonight is going to be the night that we are able to vote on this, just given concerns from my fellow counselors about getting the planning board on this. And so I am going to make a motion that we table this, I believe.
So I think we'll have to continue
The public hearing, and we have to pick a date.
Yeah,
Okay.
So
They certain, yes.
Yep.
in time,
Awesome.
yeah.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, please.
The copy could be, or a request could be sent to the city engineer to show the impact of parking on the street.
Okay.
And Madam Chair, I'm going to make another suggestion
Okay.
when you recognize me.
Counselor Bartley, go for
Yep.
it.
Yeah, just a quick comment. It's not my concern per se, but it's Massachusetts state law that requires us to get feedback by the planning board, okay? So, you know, take me out of it, but you heard the law department say chapter 40, but it might be 40A. So I just want to make sure that's clear. It's not just me, it's state law that requires that.
I think we're clear.
Yeah, well, that wasn't the word I heard a moment ago.
Counselor, really?
Well,
So,
but I'm gonna make my recommendation as well. I mean, you're saying stuff, and I have a right to speak.
I have
have a right to
recognized
speak.
you, sir. I've recognized you every time you've spoken, and I am listening to the law department. I'm sorry if my words were upsetting. I don't know what.
Well, they were incorrect. I'm just
Okay,
correcting them.
I'm
So,
incorrect. There we go.
Thank you.
Great.
Great. So I would say that we should get some feedback, certainly from the receiver slash superintendent, relative to what their plans are for the bus. I think I would also want to get feedback from the Board of Public Works and the Planning Department as well. And then I would also think that maybe we can have a late file order relative to no parking signs on both Orchard and Sargent from, here to the corner, because that often helps the motoring public, because a lot of them ignore the fact that it's 20 feet or wherever it is. You don't need an ordinance change for that, because it's already the law. You just want the signs erected. So that might help put a little emphasis on where people can and cannot park. And if that's the case, hopefully my suggestion earlier in this meeting would bear some fruit that would allow the bus driver to at least pull over for the time being against the curb. Thank you.
Okay, so looking at dates for continuing this, 28th or...
The 28th is not open.
Just kidding.
So the next city council meeting will be December 6th,
Yeah. Should we try...
maybe the 5th?
All right.
I don't like doing it the day before. 'cause
I
otherwise
don't love it
anything
either. I don't
and
love
you're
it
stuck
either.
in, But we're
Why don't you
we're
try
running
the
out of
7th?
time.
Maybe that's an open date. And it's the day after the meeting, and you got the next city council meeting in
On
December.
the
You got two.
20th? Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
So I'll make a motion that we continue this public hearing till Wednesday, December 7th at 6:30 PM.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. This will be continued to Wednesday, December 7th, and in the meantime, we're going to send a request to the city engineer, and then we'd like to get feedback from the Public Works and the Planning Board. Great. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight, and we'll be in touch with everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make a motion, suspend the rules, I think they go together, maybe I'm reading it wrong. Do they go together? 2 and 3? Maybe they don't.
No, they
No,
don't.
I'll make a motion, to take number 2 off the table, open to public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Item number 2 is the special permit application for the Valley Opportunity Council at 348 Chestnut and 4852 Franklin to extend and alter a nonconforming structure in connection with proposed rehabilitation of multifamily property. I see we're joined this evening by our friends at Valley Opportunity Council. You like to come in? Or stand there, whatever works for you. Make yourself comfortable. And just remember, if the green button's on, the microphone is on. Great.
Evening, thanks for having us. Steve Huntley, Executive Director of Valley Opportunity Council. So this is more of a insurance policy, if you will. We're asking for our 40T to be extended for another year. Currently it expires end of December. We are right at the 1 yard line. I'll use a football analogy. Starting construction, we hope under the current plan today is that we're going to start construction somewhere around the first week of December. But just in case there's a supply chain, who knows, any sort of a tsunami, whatever, we're looking to get it extended for 1 more year in case there's any unforeseen delay. As of today, we're reasonably confident we're going to start construction and we don't actually need this extension. The worry is if something were to go wrong and then we're scrambling and behind the 8 ball, and no one likes that around the holidays. I got enough things to be behind the 8 ball on. So,
Great.
yeah. Ellen can tell you the details of what's in it. That's way above where I am, but
Okay.
Ellen, our attorney.
Great. There you go.
Sorry. Ellen Fryman, Schatz, Schwartz, and Fenton, 1441 Main Street in Springfield. So we were granted the special permit 2 years ago, December 15th, and this is a property at 348 Chestnut Street. multifamily building that will be rehabbed as part of this project, and we'll be converting one of the, currently there was a commercial unit in there, and we're going to be converting it to another residential unit. So what we're doing is altering a pre-existing non-conforming structure, which does not conform with regard to setback, parking, and density. And by adding this additional unit, we'll be increasing the nonconformity for density. We'll be putting in more units than is allowed under the zoning currently. When this was built, 1915, I believe, it complied. So, that's what we're doing. You'll be seeing construction, like Steve said, hopefully soon. This involves some city money. CPA funds are going into the project. Otherwise, it's other public funds, DHCD, tax credits, historic tax credits, low-income housing tax credits. Whole 9 yards on this project. So that's why it's been taking quite a while to put all this together. But it's going to be a great project. It also, involves another property, 337 Chestnut Street. That's not part of this permit, but it's part of the project. So both buildings will be totally rehabbed and look great. So,
awesome. Thank you. Quick question before I go to Councilor Bacon. When do you anticipate the project being completed, if it starts, fingers crossed, as you hope?
We're hoping March of 20, I got to get the year right, 24. I actually got to start and think about it. It's a little over a year and a few months.
Okay.
The windows that we've ordered are special historic windows that have a 40-week lead time. So that's pushed our date. It's blown everything up.
Yeah.
We're hoping that that'll be done. The financing's all in place. The wheels are in motion. This isn't a stall, and you'll hear from us a year from now. I promise that. This is if something goes hiccup and we can't start, we didn't want to be up against days.
Sure.
We'd rather come a month ahead of time, try and get it extended. So if something unforeseen happens, but the money's there. Everything's there except the things that we don't know that are going to blow up, like 40-week windows.
Right,
times,
of course.
things
Thank
like
you.
that.
Awesome. Councilor Bacon?
Thanks. So I just wanted to clarify, since we're in a public hearing, that this renewal is not changing the initial special permit that we already granted at all.
that's correct.
So I just think that's the big
Right.
thing. We already did all of the hearings and vetting and discussion around all of the particulars.
That's right.
And so, to me, it's pretty straightforward. So,
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
thank you.
Councilor Bartley?
Is there a date?
Is there, I'm sorry?
Well, what are we continuing it to? Extending it to?
Well, we did have to start over, so I think we get 2 years again.
2 years,
So it would be 2 years from now, basically.
Well, I don't know that to be true. So, so it's if we do extend, it's automatically by 2 years, or do we not make our own determination?
Aren't they usually?
Well, I don't know if they're usually anything. So
Well, it was approved on December 15th.
Well, let me rephrase it. Well, how long do you need?
We don't need the full 2 years, but if we get the 2 years, it's whatever it is, we would just request a year, but
So if it was extended 2 years, it would give you ample time in case something else happened. But so that wouldn't really matter.
Yeah, it shouldn't
So,
be
but
2
two-
years. A year would be absolutely a crisis if we're back a year from now and we haven't
Yeah.
started.
Okay. So when we were here, when we were here?
December 15th, 2020.
No kidding. Been
kidding.
that long? Jeez,
Time
Miss
flies.
Fryman. Boy,
Time flies.
geez, Miss Fryman, we've missed you. Okay.
You didn't miss me, though.
No,
You didn't hear me say that, did you, Steve? No, I missed you too, you know that. Okay, so if that's the case, then when the time comes after the public has had a chance to address us, then we can make a motion just to clarify the permit, that we'll make a motion to amend the permit until, what was your end date now, Steve? The permit expires when?
March of 2024 is when he was saying that he wanted to have the construction done.
Yeah,
No,
we hope
but
people
December
will do.
15th is
Is
when
when
it
we
expires
Yep,
now,
right.
right?
when we
Yeah, but-
turn into a pumpkin.
Okay, so December 15th, 22 is when the current one expires. So we can make a motion to extend it to December 15 of 24, I would say that would give you ample time. So that's the motion I'll make after the public has had a chance to address us.
Okay.
When we close the public hearing.
Is there anyone else in the council chambers or on the Zoom? I see I forgot to mention we were joined by Councilor McGivern in person, and Councilor Puelo is on the Zoom call. Anyone else in the audience or? Okay.
I'll make a motion to close the, before I do that, I always like to ask, is there anything else that we need to know about this other than extending the permit before I close the make a motion to close the public hearing? You're all good to go?
So, yeah.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to amend this current special permit to change the, the end date to December 15th, 2024.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So that passes unanimously, and
Thank you so much.
thank you very much for being here and for your
Thank you so
investment.
much.
Thank you very much. This
Thank
goes
you.
before City Council.
Tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I just want to congratulate Councilor McGivern on your daughter. I read about her today. That was very
Oh, don't
happy
butter
for
him up.
She's winning all the awards. We're very proud of her.
Puppy loves it.
Awesome.
But
You
she,
can butter him up offline to get his vote.
is she working there now?
Yes.
Both of them are there.
Great.
Okay.
I know both of them.
All right, it's old home week. I'll make a motion to take number 3 off the table.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Item number 3 on tonight's agenda is an update from Wayfinders about the analysis of the 5-block area of Holyoke bounded by Appleton Street, Nick Cosmos Way, Worcester Place, and High Street. All right. So we've got Diane Smith. Hi, Diane. And I'm assuming Mr. Harris is also joining for this evening.
Yes, he is.
Yes.
Great. And then we've got a couple folks in the audience as well. So I'm going to turn it over to you to give us an overview of what's on the agenda for this evening.
Thank you so much for inviting us this evening. I really apologize for not being able to make it there in person. I was out of state today. I'm Diane Smith. I am the Chief Real Estate Officer at Wayfinders. I want to give you a little background. We do have a PowerPoint presentation to share with you all, but I wanted to give you a little bit of background on how Wayfinders got engaged in this work. In June of 2021, the City of Holyoke had issued a request for proposals for its ARPA funds, and Wayfinders had responded by wanting to redevelop certain vacant parcels in the area, in the High Street area. And while that proposal was not funded, we did have conversations after that with municipal representatives about that interest and what we might be able to do in terms of assessing the viability of the 6-block area. So Wayfinders engaged Richard Harris. He is a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners and a former municipal planner for the town of South Hadley, among other towns across the country, to do an assessment of this multi-block area, which is also a subset of the TDI area that Holyoke is also engaged in. So I'm going to introduce Richard, and if you wouldn't mind me sharing my screen, he's going to go over a PowerPoint presentation as soon as I can find what I'm looking for.
Jeffrey, is that something you can help with?
You should have a share screen option there. Okay.
Thank you.
Just a second, let me do this.
Should be right beside participants at the bottom.
Yeah, it should. Hold on. I apologize. I use Teams quite a bit. Got a whiteboard. Is that it? There we go. I apologize. All right, I'm going to get started here. All right, Richard, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Good evening, councilors. It's interesting to watch your public hearings. It reminds me why I was glad I retired as planning director in South Hadley. Public hearings are never pleasant, or not always pleasant. The purpose of this study is to provide a concentrated, action-focused planning analysis of the 5-block area of Holyoke bounded by Appleton, Nick Cosmos Way, Worcester Place, and High Street. Next slide. This generally anchored by the playground on Nick Cosmos Way, the U-Haul at Nick Cosmos Way, Appleton, Key Bank at Appleton and High, and then the row houses on and apartments on Worcester Place. Next slide. The process involved a basic planning process of collection and analysis of demographic and housing data of the area, review of relevant prior plans, studies, regulations, to see what the city's interest and focus has been, as well as provide data from those, review analysis of selected available online environmental databases such as Mass DEP, Mass Historical, review analysis of data provided by the city. The city provided us with taxing data as well as inspection data from building inspection and Board of Health for the 5-block area, excuse me, for the past 20 years. And undertaking a visual assessment of the study area's buildings and properties, as well as infrastructure. Interviews with identified community stakeholders, review of infrastructure through the visual assessment, as well as interviews with municipal officials. Excuse me. Integrating analysis and mapping of the information from prior steps, and then identification of development opportunities and development recommendations relevant to the development opportunities in the area. Next slide. The study area is 5 blocks. It's within the Census Tract 8116. That area lost residents in the past 20 years. Not surprising. 1 in 2 families in that Census Tract have incomes below the poverty level. Nearly half the households lack an automobile, which means they're very transit dependent, very pedestrian dependent. It's an environmental justice community for all the various reasons: minority, non-English speaking, as well as income. Housing supply actually grew faster than households and population, and that's a function of the changing demographics, dominated by non-single family dwellings. And 9 out of 10 households rent their residence as opposed to owning. Next slide. Nearly 80% of the residents that tract are of Puerto Rican heritage, which is reflected in some of the restaurants in the area, as well as you look at some of the bright color schemes on Union Street row housing. I've been told that's trying to recapture Old San Juan. Next slide. The study area itself, over the past 10 years, lost 2 out of 5 of its 2010 residents. Single-family dwellings account for approximately 1/4 of the housing supply. Most housing units are in buildings that predate the Model T. And that's an important trait that we'll come back to later. Land use and environmental conditions. Generally, the area is reasonably clean environmentally, but it's largely dilapidated. Environmental conditions appear to pose little to no limitations to development. There's no wetlands, there's no floodplain area. When you look at the Mass DEP website, they don't have any 21E sites in the area. They don't have any significant environmental issues in this particular study area. They do border the area though. And again, most buildings, commercial as well as residential, predate the Model T. And most buildings would be considered in a moderate to severe state of disrepair. Next slide. There's more vacant upper floor space than occupied first floor space in commercial buildings on High Street. Over an acre of vacant upper floor space exists in the study area, all on High Street. Nearly half an acre of vacant first floor space exists in commercial buildings along High Street. There's 4 historic districts, national historic districts in Holyoke. 3 buildings in the study area at the corner of Key and Appleton are within one of those National Historic Districts, which potentially gives access to National Historic tax credits for rehab projects. Demolition has been very transformative. Next slide, please. It's transformed dilapidated and fire-damaged buildings into vacant lots in the area. Next slide. Infrastructure in areas over 100 years old. Electric distribution will require improvements, at least 1 or 2 circuits. Water distribution is generally good. They've replaced valves and a lot of fixtures, but the pipes are generally over 100 years old. Roadways and sidewalks vary in condition from needing repair to being okay, just may overlay. And some sidewalks don't exist, such as on Newton Street. There's a section without sidewalks completely. Others need total reconstruction. Sewer and stormwater collection is combined. Public parking is on street. Private parking is off street. There's no off-street public parking within the study area. There is, and this is important, available off-street public parking nearby. Next slide. We also looked at the regulatory environment. Didn't he look at wetlands regulations or floodplain, because there's no wetlands or floodplain area. Similarly, there's no local historic district within this area, so didn't he look at those. But zoning was important, and so is stormwater. Most parcels in this study area are non-conforming. Rebuilding the existing structures would require a special permit in just about every case, if not every case. Newton Street, for instance, had 25 row houses at one time. It now has 22, and some of those should come down. But today's zoning would only allow 4 single-family homes in that same 25-unit area. So these parking requirements pose a problem. Remember, these commercial developments were generally built without automobiles in mind. Therefore, the current requirement of 2 parking spaces for every unit, up to 50 units, is a potential barrier for any redevelopment. Stormwater regulations, not the stormwater ordinance, pose a potential issue. The stormwater ordinance is fairly standard, but the regulations require a reduction to the extent feasible in post-development peak runoff versus pre-development runoff. Normally, the requirement is no greater peak runoff, post-development peak runoff than pre-development. But this actually requires, your regulations require a reduction. It's important to note that the ordinance doesn't require that, but the implementing regulations that were adopted by another entity did. The next section involved a SWOT analysis. Next slide, please. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges. Some may know this as a SWOT analysis. I don't view anything as a threat. I just see challenges as opposed to threats. This involved reviewing the previous data plus discussions with 13 different individuals in the city. They range from the executive director of the Boys and Girls Club to the mayor to different municipal officials, owner a restaurant in the area, the head of the Latino Chamber, as well as the executive director of the Holyoke Chamber, and other individuals that were brought to my attention. Next slide. One thing you'll note when I go through this, some things are viewed as strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges, all 4 categories, because people view them something in a different perspective. And so there's different opinions on those. Newton Street row houses will be one of those that follows all 4 categories. In strengths, Newton Street row houses, the parcels, libraries and parks, access to 391 and to downtown, high traffic volumes at Cabot and High Street, police station, fire station, and Boys and Girls Club. Cultural identity and diversity were mentioned almost uniformly as a strength. Food establishments, not only within the study area, but in easy access Within a half-mile radius, I believe I counted like 40 different restaurants, eating establishments. Housing developments near this area. Next slide. Weaknesses: building deterioration, neglect, larger neglect. Delinquent tax properties. This is important. There's over $780,000 in delinquencies in this 5-block area. And 3 properties account for over $390,000 of that. $370,000 of that amount. Absentee ownership. Crime safety, perceived and real. Union Street row houses, again. Quality of housing. Parking. Unmanned sites of demolished buildings. What's noticed is when a building gets demolished, it will become used. And oftentimes it's used by activities we don't want to see happen. Hangouts. If people hang out, they do vehicle repair. Sometimes that creates conflicts with adjoining uses. The Boys and Girls Club have noted some issues with some that associated with the playground, where there's some vacant properties have been kind of taken over by people engaged in activities that may not be supportive of the playground. Lack of resident and business ownership, and lack of development activity within the area. Next slide, please. This slide simply geographically identifies some of these opportunities. And I'll note again, when you look at the tax delinquencies, $782,000 is delinquent according to information from the city in this 5-block area. 3 properties have a ratio of, I analyzed the tax delinquencies of each parcel to the assessed value. And 3 parcels, the delinquencies are greater than 100% of the assessed value. I think you can generally assume that if a property has that level of delinquency, the delinquency is not going to be redeemed or cured. And those 3 parcels count for $372,600. Next slide, please. Opportunities. High Street, the food establishment in the area and within easy access to the area. The cultural identity of the area. The New Street vacant parcels. The New Street row houses. Especially as opportunity for potentially low income or moderate income ownership opportunities to stabilize the area. The vacant upper story space for housing and or offices. Vacant storefront space. Cabot Street buildings for rehab or redevelopment. Parking areas and potential food truck plaza sites. Next slide, please. This shows a generalized area of those opportunities. Next slide. Challenges. The vacant buildings and vacant parcels create significant challenges for how to reuse them, how to dispose of them, how to assemble them. Prime locations. Perceived and real. Perceived will at least discourage people from coming in. Engagement and partnerships. How to get the partnerships to work and how to identify them and get them formalized. Ownership. Some ownership of parcels that create barriers because the ownership is in a trust or is in different, creates barriers to somebody trying to get a transaction to occur. Absent ownership and overdue taxes, as I mentioned earlier. Funding is always an issue. The U-Haul facility is generally considered by many as a good example of redevelopment, but also viewed by others as a challenge of how do you get a mixed-use development, get revitalized of the area with that structure way it is with the facade there. And it's generally accepted that it's going to be there, but nobody's suggesting go away. But just how do you redevelop the area with that space there? The alleys are a challenge. Residential commercial conflicts. Sometimes a mixed-use building can be a problem if there's not effective management, especially the residential units. Restaurants, food trucks. They can be have symbiotic relationship to help each other, or they can also be perceived that food trucks may pose a threat to restaurants. I think many people view the idea of food truck plazas as a way to bring more people in on a short time basis that would then expose them to the other restaurants that are established on a brick and mortar basis. Next slide, please. Funding is always the biggest challenge for any redevelopment, whether it be for parking, infrastructure, or for the housing itself, or commercial development. Next slide, please. Based on this analysis, we developed a concept plan that looked at housing, primarily mixed use along High Street, anchored at High and Appleton, row house redevelopment, new 2 and 3 family development on some vacant parcels that have been sites of demolition, multifamily redevelopment, commercial opportunities, part of mixed use along High Street, as well as rehabbing commercial space along High Street, and new commercial space along High Street where there's been previous demolition. That'd be through redevelopment. There's also been identified a need for teen center. The Boys and Girls Club had noted that, and there's ways to incorporate that into the redevelopment. And then there's opportunities to create, at least on a temporary basis, nodes, or you can have food truck plazas for special events. Next slide, please. The most significant, I think, development opportunity is for mixed use, anchored at High Street in Appleton, with a key bank, the 2 adjacent buildings, as well as 2 vacant parcels which Wayfinders is acquiring from the city. This will involve new development on High Street of about 7,900 square foot parcels, vacant upper floor conversions of about 36,000 square feet, rehab of existing upper residence of about 6,700 square feet, and parking and/or housing on vacant Newton Street parcels. There's 3 parcels of about 18,300 square feet. Next slide, please. Infrastructure is an essential need. HG&E representatives indicated that one can assume that there's going to be a need for at least 1 or 2 new circuits to serve redevelopment of this 5-block area. And that could be $500,000 or $5 million cost. There need to be some detailed engineering for that. Roadways and sidewalks, at least resurfacing of several streets, upgrading of substandard sidewalks, construction of a new sidewalk on Newton Street where it doesn't exist, and a Newton Street complete streetscape project, which I would envision as a combination of landscaping and ways to marry the redevelopment with the existing development. Parking facilities, there's multiple options there. I think at minimum there need to be some relief from the parking requirements to accommodate the mixed-use development. And that relief could be based on the fact that there's available parking at municipal facilities nearby, and maybe there's opportunities to get a joint use for parking with the U-Haul facility, and maybe a mixture of parking facility and upper level development on properties on Newton Street. Water service, one should assume that older water lines would need replacement even if the valves and other fixtures are fine. The lines themselves may need to be replaced. And sewer service, there's no clear indication with DPW that there's a need for it, or city engineer, there's a need for sewer improvement. But with 100-year-old sewer lines, one should assume they would need to be upgraded. Next slide. This slide depicts the locations of primary infrastructure needs. Excuse me. Who could use this study? Clearly, Wayfinders. They pay for the site, so it's to their use. I also think the city and its municipal entities could use it. When looking at the area, there's clearly a need for some regulatory changes to encourage developers to undertake opportunities here. If a developer always needs a special permit, developers will weigh that with opportunities to develop elsewhere where they don't need a special permit. Special permits create an unknown outcome and require applicants to invest money, sums, into studies, into applications, and take time without knowing a predictable outcome. And that can be a barrier, especially looking at the Union Street row house redevelopment, where by right, if they assemble all those, they're going to do 4 single-family homes. They wouldn't want to engage in that project unless they had a clear picture of what they'd be able to achieve. And 4 single-family homes would very likely not be worth their while. Identify appropriate land use for other planning purposes for the city. Urban renewal plan amendments. Prioritization of delinquency, foreclosures, dispositions. As I noted, you got 3 properties there that owe over $372,000. One of those is at over 9, the ratio of delinquency to assessed value is over 900%. That's probably got a demolition lien accounted for most of that. But it's an opportunity for the city to use this to prioritize. How can we do acquisitions and dispositions that support the redevelopment opportunities? And allocation of funding, whether it be the city's regular municipal budget, or whether it be ARPA funding, or targeting other grant pursuits. Could be where you allocate your CDBG funding, pursuit of a Section 108 loan guarantee through CDBG to assist in the redevelopment project. Again, ARPA funding is a major immediate term need to look at. So I think there's opportunity to look at these recommendations and the analysis here and allocate funding that would be supportive of reuse of these properties in a way that I think the opportunities suggest they should be used. And any questions?
Wow, well, thank you. That was a very thorough analysis and a lot of information for us that I think is really valuable, not just to the work that Wayfinders is trying to do, but also, the city as a whole. I have a question, and then I'll open it up to my colleagues here. There's a lot of information that you guys just presented about, a lot of different things that we should be aware of. And I'm just curious, accessing that data, what was that process like, working with the city and property owners? I assume that things like tax delinquent properties is easy to identify, but I'm just curious what that process is like.
Well, I give credit to the mayor and the various departments at the city. They were very cooperative. Aaron was able to reach out to the treasurer to provide the tax delinquency information. The building commissioner and the director of public health both worked together to provide me with the inspection data from their past 20 years of enforcement in that area. And the administration was very helpful, they made it very easy to access the data. The challenge came back to how to analyze it, and that fell on me to look at how to best picture and view the data.
Okay, thank you.
And I will say, the city's website also has a mapping program that allows one to access the property data for each individual property So you can get the assessment data, you can get the building footprint data, existing building structures, as well as some historical data for each property. And that's a pretty user-friendly mapping program.
Thank you. Any other counselors?
Just a point of order, man. How'd this get before us? What was it, communication? Was it an order?
Both. There was an order that was filed and there was a communication that was sent at the last full meeting. This package was sent to us.
Okay, so is this just an order under, is an order under your name?
Yeah, well, there was an order, Jeffrey, off the top of my head, I'm not quite sure what the order was.
No, it was just a communication.
Okay, so is this different? There was a Wayfinders order in the jacket. Okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
I'll have to follow up.
Jeff, no big deal. Thank you, Madam Chair. No big deal. I just didn't see it in our agenda. Mr. Harris, great to see you again.
David.
This is really terrific what you put together. I could probably ask you 100 different questions right now, but I don't want to go there right the minute. I'd rather just ask through the chair to Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Okay, now thank you for being here. I remember you here fondly for the last time you were here. This is not your first time in City Council. Ms. Smith, what would you have us? I mean, so we got the overview, and so why don't you just tell us in your own words, in a minute or two or whatever, what's the next step? So we reviewed it. We've heard this. We're going to have to digest it. I mean, Mr. Harris does a lot of work, and I've worked with Mr. Harris before a long time ago, and so I've seen his work. So what would you have us do at this stage other than take it in and try to grasp is what we can?
I would say we want you to use it to the best that you can. We've shared this with the Office of Planning and Economic Development. Wayfinders is a partner in the TDI partnership, so to the extent that any of this data is valuable in moving those planning efforts forward, we want to be able to have it made available. That was really the commitment we made when we were talking to the municipal officials. We were talking to Aaron and Alicia primarily about putting together an assessment of the highest and best use in this area. We are certainly, Wayfinders is interested in developing in this area, but we know that there are others who also have interest in this area. So having this information as a foundation, we really think is just valuable.
Yeah, that's very helpful, Ms. Smith. So, and we appreciate what you've done before over by the library. So, we had you here before with that. If you recall, well, you don't, but there's a street over there that was pitch black, and I was able to get the G&E to install four or five new LED lights there to brighten up the whole street that feeds over from the library. I think it's from Hampshire to Appleton. So I think that's Chestnut Street, but I'll stand corrected if I'm wrong. So that, and even though that's Ward 1, I saw the need, so I was glad to help out with that. So one thing I just want to make clear on, just as a small potato to Mr. Chair, Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris, when you're working with the G&E, did you ask them about the overall brightness of High Street and Newton and the area? Because I mean, I know you talked about crime, real and perceived, your words, not mine. But when I find that when you put more light on things, literally, it actually helps out the aesthetics, and I think it helps out a lot of things. So is that something that when you talk to the G&E, did they indicate they were going to do something along these lines, or are they waiting for something else to happen before they implement it?
They didn't indicate they were planning to do anything like that, but I think they're open to it, and that's part of what I suggested as the Union Street Complete Streetscape Project. I think landscaping as well as lighting would be helpful there. Their main focus when I talked to them was they want to put all of their utilities, primary service lines underground. They've got a section of Union Street that's still above ground, and they're looking at High Street as their next big project.
Which parts, I thought all the downtown was underground, but
Now,
maybe
there's a
not.
section, there's a primary service area on Newton Street between Essex and Cabot that's still above ground.
Okay. All right, and then I guess at some point, Ms. Smith and Mr. Harris, you're going to have to go back to OPED and other agencies, and then they're going to have to come to us with a follow-up, because, I mean, you referenced, so many square footage, Richard, in some of the buildings. I mean, you got to find a place to start, I guess is my point. So I don't know where you think the best place is to start, but wherever you think it's great to start, I'm in agreement, just to start somewhere. So hopefully we'll get some feedback. This is semi-rhetorical, but hopefully we'll get some feedback from you and OPED, I don't know, by January or February with an order to, from our end to see what we can do to help. I just want to, just through the chair, recognize that Mr. Creed, the HRA chair, is here. So I don't know if Mr. Creed wants to, just here to listen, or if he wants to weigh in on this. I have no idea what the chair wants to do, but Mr. Creed, did you want to just? Well, it's up. It's up. Yeah, I'll make a motion to suspend our rules and to allow the HRA chair to address us on this topic.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Welcome, Tom.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm Tom Creed, 2 Pheasant Drive, Chair of the Redevelopment Authority in Holyoke. And I did want to mention that Diane and Richard and our partners at Wayfinders had come to the Redevelopment Authority at the start of this study, and I'm thrilled to see the results of it. And I think I just want to reflect on South Holyoke for a minute, because what's kind of happening here is what happened a number of years ago in South Holyoke, where we had a vision, we had some studies, we had a lot of data, and it took a number of partners to ultimately take all of that data and all of that vision, and a little bit of luck and some timing and some money, which included a Mass Works grant, which ultimately created the infrastructure investment necessary to make phase 1 of South Holyoke, which is now being built, actually happen. So I'm looking at what now we're talking about on High Street, and we've had discussions in the Redevelopment Authority that the next place we want to start to focus our efforts on is High Street. And at the same time, the TDI fellow that is now in place in the city of Holyoke is focused on High Street. So it feels like there are a number of people who need to come together in partnership along with the city to make something happen in this area. And the last time we opened up the urban renewal plan, it was to place additional focus on this very part of the city. So I'm just thrilled to see the result of this, and hope that Wayfinders will come back to the Redevelopment Authority so we can have more discussions as to what role we can play to help move this plan forward in the development on High Street.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. So I have a question around your comments on the zoning, and if I'm getting into too much detail, just bear with me. But I was just wondering if in the other areas you've looked at, if there are some unique zones that have been created to help with the redevelopment of an area like this, where we have 2 or 3 or 4 different zones that may or may not be compatible. Is there perhaps a new and unique zoning that can be brought to bear in an area like this, in your experience?
My experience, I've looked at other communities, and I know where I've worked at, and we had particular issues in the area, we developed new zoning districts, overlay districts usually. In some cases, we simply reformed the zoning ordinance or zoning bylaw to make the bylaw more consistent with the objectives of our community that we're working in. I think what would need to be looked at here is we've identified issues with Newton Street row houses, for instance, as a potential barrier, but we want to look at, I think you want to look at a large area of this in terms of maybe we need to just revise some of the underlying zoning districts to make them more reflective of what a downtown residential should be.
Okay, so like the DR zone that we have, that we
Right.
could relook at that. Okay.
As an
Thank you.
example.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the council? All right. Thank you both very much for being here this evening, and thank you to those in the council chambers with us. We appreciate this update, and I'm sure that we'll keep taking a look at ways that we can implement some of your suggestions and do what's best for High Street.
Oh, Madam Chair?
Sure.
Can I ask a question, Councilor McGivern?
Sure.
Councilor McGivern, does this section of Holyoke have a name? That we just, does it have a name, Joe? That would help.
It's downtown.
Downtown.
Maybe Mr. Creek could come up with a name for us. It would just help to
Give it
encapsulate
a
it.
reference.
I am hearing people refer to it as the SoHi District. Southern High.
No, I get it.
And I live in Elmwood Heights, and I could never tell my mother that one.
Should be proud of that.
Oh, no, she's proud of Elmwood.
Great.
All right, I'll make a motion to receive, I guess.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
And thank you to Wayfinders.
Thank you very
and
much.
Mr.
Thank you
Harris.
very much
Thank you,
for
Mr.
being
Harris.
here.
Thank
We
you for having
appreciate
us.
that.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. And Mr. Creed, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night.